now, and then please introduce our institute, please.
Well, I have to say that this is the first institute in any of the Egyptian universities to be to offer postgraduate certificates, diploma, master's, and PhD in translation studies as an independent branch. And another branch, we have the applied linguistics. We have two sections, the English section and the French section. And thanks God, we've been able to have, I can't remember the exact name of students who got their PhD and MA and diploma from the institute, but we've got a considerable number of students.
I can't hear you anymore.
You can't hear me?
That's fine now.
Hello.
Fine.
Yeah, okay. And we are trying to more or less to offer new or to have new topics in these degrees for the students to register in, especially in translation studies. Lately, we have a considerable number of students who got their PhD and MA in interpreting studies, subtitling and dubbing and conference interpreting, which is, I mean, it's kind of new horizon for students in Egyptian universities. And I left the institute because now I work at Badr University, but Dr. Nevine is continuing the march, I would say. And we are happy to have you today, and I know that we will learn a lot from your presentation. Thank you for joining us. Thank
you.
So
humbled by that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Nevine. I can't hear anything.
Dr. Nevine.
Dr. Nevine.
Thank you, Dr. Nihat. With your introduction, I'm really you have an amazing accent, and she's a well-known professor in translation and linguistics. And when I'm with Dr. Nihat, I'm really in secured hands, as we say. Je suis dans des mains en sécurité, yani. Alors, je suis très contente. Thank you, Dr.
Well, thank you, but please remember that I have very little French.
So, Professor Aziz, he speaks English and French and Arabic, and it's our first meeting in Alexandria E-Learning Club. So let me introduce our Alexandria E-Learning Club by sharing my screen. So here, this was created, our club was created on 25th of March. We have two axes. The first one was e-learning. The second one is translation. We have every week a meeting at 8 p.m. In Ramadan, we have also, on Saturdays, we have meetings. And then this is our e-learning email. Thanks God, we have an academic e-learning email. And we also, we have materials for every session. The first one is for translation sessions. The second one is for e-learning tools and e-learning sessions. We share our professor and e-learning, Alexandria E-Learning Club, our PowerPoints, our tools in every session through Google Classroom. And thank you. I'm going to give the secret that Dr. Aziz helped me to do this poster, this great poster. Thank you to Dr. Aziz. I'm really honored. And also there is Dr. Aziz.
The pleasure is mine.
Thank you. Dr. Aziz Zohri is an associated professor in research method and business English at University Hassan I of State. Isn't it like this we pronounce it? Yes.
ستات ستات ستات.
Setat. Okay, Setat, and doctorate in education and applied linguistics. So I had known Dr. Professor Aziz while I was in a session with Professor Kairat, our PhD sessions. We had a lot of PhD sessions last month, and Professor Aziz accepted my invitation today, and he's going to share his session with us and with his knowledge. At the end of the session, we will going to know some ideas and some knowledge about research methods and theories. And let me welcome Dr. Aziz, and I will give you the floor. We have also a YouTube channel. We have created Alexandria e-Learning Club channel, so everyone could hear and hear and hear again our sessions. And we are honored today to have our dear Moroccan guest and Professor Dr. Aziz Zohri. Okay, so I will give you the floor, as you say in English. Okay, and thank you. And I will stop sharing my screen. And now we are going to, you can share your screen, Professor Aziz. And please, dear members, at the end of the session, you could ask your questions by writing the question, and everyone could then ask the question. Let me also welcome our dear Professor Dr. Layla Saeed, Dr. Ghada Saber, from all over Egypt, Dr. Dina Shafi, Dr. Jihan Al-Qadi, Dr. Fathiya too, Dr. Nihad Mansour, Dr. Samah, everyone, as we always do. We have our five, and Dr. Abir Sidqi is with us, okay? The Dean of the Arab Academic Maritime and the Dean of the Language Faculty. Please, Dr. Abir, introduce yourself, please. Abir Rif'i.
Hello everyone.
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Nevine. Hello, Dr. Aziz. It's a pleasure to be with
Hello.
you today.
The pleasure is
mine.
mine.
To welcome all my colleagues, Professor Layla Saeed, Professor Nihad Mansour, and all the esteemed professors from all universities all around Egypt. And I would like to congratulate Professor Nevine for the idea of the E-Club, because I know that she is exerting a lot of effort, and it has been a brilliant idea to have something like this, gathering people from all over the world and giving us important lectures on significant topics. This is very interesting, and it's the first time for me, unfortunately, to join, but I hope that it won't be the last. I'll always be joining in, hopefully. Thank you, Professor Nevine.
Inshallah. And Dr. Yes, please.
Okay, I just want to clarify the name of the college. I'm the Dean of the College of Language and Communication, Arab Academy for Science, Technology, and Maritime Transport in Alexandria.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nevine.
And we have a program together which had been created while Dr. Nihad Mansour. Please, Dr. Abir, let us know about the program.
We have it. The idea started in 2013 when I met Professor Nihad for the first time, and we decided to have a collaboration between Alexandria University and the Arab Academy for Science and Technology. And we thought of choosing the program of Applied Linguistics in English. And we started the joint degree in diploma, master's, and PhD. And it was really a step forward in the field of, concerning the Arab Academy in the field of providing postgraduate degrees to our students. And till now, after 7 years, we have graduated a lot of, we have a lot of candidates, and about 100 candidates have graduated from the program till now. And I believe that the field of applied linguistics is a rare field in Egypt, and it's very important. And having the Institute of Applied Linguistics and Translation being the first institute to provide such a degree, this is an asset to Alexandria University. And it's, of course, it is an added value to the College of Language and Communication to be a part of this program. And I hope that some of the people who are joining the meeting today have graduated from this program or are still studying as PhD candidates or MA candidates in the program. So I believe they have benefited a lot, either from the professors of the Alexandria University or the professors of the Arab Academy.
Thank you, Professor Abir Rifi, and thank you, Dr. Nihad, for helping me out of this session because with my poor English, I'm very stuck, I know. So
no, you are okay. I mean, you are very okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Professor Aziz Zohri, you could share your screen and we can start now.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. First, allow me to express my thanks and gratitude to Dr. Nevine for inviting me to this e-learning club to share some of the knowledge I have acquired during the years with those distinguished professors who are here and our students. And I am really humbled by your presence and your welcoming words. It is really flattering, and I have no words to express my thanks to all the doctors and professors who are around here. So it's someone said that they're expecting to learn a lot of things, but I think that this is really humbling. I am also going to learn today. I'm already learning from your humbleness. So I am really happy to be with you virtually in Alexandria in Egypt. And it's a pleasure to be among our brothers and sisters in Egypt, virtually, of course. And I hope that one day we will meet in Alexandria and you are welcome in Casablanca, where I live, or at University Hassan First of Stat. Whenever you want to maybe come and see us, you are welcome. And as I said, as I told Dr. Nevine, I hope that this will be a springboard for more collaboration between us, because that's what normally should be the norm. I mean, the norm should be sharing knowledge among our colleagues in Egypt and elsewhere in the Arab world. And that's what I have been trying to do after our international conference that Nevine and others attended. Dr. Shafi'i and other doctors, professors who attended the conference know that the presence of the Arab world was, yes, it was, the presence of the Arab world was enormous, and I hope that we will build on these experiences together. Well, I think that I will start first by congratulating you on this initiative, Dr. Nevine, and everybody who is collaborating in this initiative, the Alexandria e-learning club, and the idea of developing students' learning and reaching out to people outside Egypt and outside Alexandria, so that we can interact and kind of have develop knowledge through cross-disciplinary research and cross-disciplinary learning. The topic of today is understand research methods, integrating theory with practice. Actually, I'm not going to say that I am the expert in the room here, no, but this is just a topic that kind of intrigues me, because I think that a lot of learners and researchers, especially novice researchers and researchers in the world and in the Arab world, in Morocco also, we need to learn more about how theory is integrated with research, or how theory feeds research, and how research can kind of be structured, better structured through theory. So I'm going to try to jot some ideas, and as I said, well, the 1 hour or maybe 40 minutes or 45 minutes is not enough to cover what research and theory, how research and theory are linked together in the research field. So I'm just going to give snapshots or flashes, and it's up to the people who are here to discover further, maybe through the questions and maybe through interactions after that, because that's the most important thing, is to keep interacting later after this conference or after this lecture.
Thank you.
So I will start with, you're welcome. I will start with this. I don't know if I guess some of you might be familiar with this, but as I was doing my research, because you are in a school of, is it a school, Nevine? A school of translation and applied linguistics? No? College, yes? College of...
non, institut, nous sommes études supérieures, high education, okay? And the faculty of arts, okay?
So it's a faculty. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a faculty of translation and applied linguistics.
We are, and we are a high education. We deliver master's degree, and
I know you're part of the university. I already know this. I just wanted to the word. So it's a faculty.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but this is what is called the Septuagint. Septuagint is the first known translation of the Hebrew Bible. Okay? Yeah. And the Old Testament. So it's the first modern translation made in the world, and it was made in Alexandria. So that's of course, it shows the history of Alexandria. That's research and knowledge was thriving in Alexandria at a given time. Everybody knows this. But just to relate this to what you're doing at your institute or at the faculty, so this is a kind of a pride for Alexandria to have the first translation of the Hebrew Bible that was made by 72 elders sent by the King Lemus in order to speak they just spoke Greek, so they had to read the Bible in Greek. So that's why they translated this Septuagint to Greek. So this is just maybe talking about Alexandria and your institute. Let's start talking about research in the Arab world and research publications, especially research publications. And we have to really work very, very hard. And that's what you're doing today. Being interested in research, people getting interested in research, learning more about research will help our researchers, especially our doctoral students, to publish and to maybe help this world we live in get higher ranks in terms of publications. As you can see here, you have a MENA region here in the red, and you have Norway. So the whole MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, the whole MENA region cannot compete with Norway, which is a small country in Scandinavia. So I hope that this will improve one day. And we are improving, the MENA region is improving, but it's not improving as expected. Of course, we know that part of the problem is that a lot of our researchers, novice researchers, are clueless. Okay, either novice or not novice, but a lot of researchers are clueless. They are clueless, especially about what makes good research, what makes a good publication, and how to publish in the whole world. Okay. I'm sorry, there is my little daughter is around here, and if she is kind of disturbing you, I apologize. So as I said, we need to help each other have more clues, okay, to get more expertise in the domain of research. Now, the first thing to start with, I think, I personally believe that the first thing to start with is to give a definition of research. And I love this definition, Noma 76, but it says that research is a systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical investigation of hypothetical propositions about the presumed relations among natural phenomena. Why I like this? Because this synthesizes most of what we can think of when it comes to research. And it is a very, very good synthesis and definition of what research is about. So the first thing we have is that research is systematic. It's very important to keep in mind for researchers. Research is systematic. It should be done systematically. It follows a number of steps, patterns, and protocols. So there is a protocol to follow. Research is systematic. If you are not following that protocol, you are not doing research. So that's the first thing that researchers, novice researchers, should learn, that they are going to embark on something that is systematic, that there are steps to follow, that there is a framework, that there is a structure that they need to put themselves in if they want to do research. It is controlled, of course, because researchers control their variables and try to structure them so as to carry out empirical and critical investigation of hypothetical propositions. So there are hypotheses, there are propositions, there are assumptions about the presumed relations. So of course, research investigates relationships between different variables among natural phenomena. So we're studying natural phenomena. So that's, I think that's what we should keep in mind about research, generally speaking. And of course, as I said, this is just maybe to start with something and then build on this in terms of knowing more about research. Of course, the novice researchers and clueless researchers or researchers who are still developing themselves in research have one of them is this topic worth investigating. How would I know if this topic is worth investigating or not? Should I adopt a quantitative approach or qualitative approach or both, and why? By the way, sometimes novice researchers and doctoral students don't even ask these questions because they are really clueless. I'm just saying that people who ask questions similar to these ones, they do have some clues. So I guess one of the things we can start with as if we're teaching research or research methodology or research methods is to provide students with questions like these. Provide doctoral students or researchers, novice researchers with questions like these. They kind of guide them, like using a Socratic method, trying to ask a number of questions that will guide the reflection upon what they're going to do in terms of research. So the second question, should I adopt a quantitative approach or qualitative approach or both? Which method is best? Are there better methods? Are there methods that are better than others or not? Which data collection strategy should I use? Why? How and on which basis should I interpret my data? Which theoretical framework should I adopt? And do I have to have one after all? So these are very good questions that researchers should start with maybe and try to reflect on what they are going to embark on once they become researchers, once they want to become researchers. As I always say, students doing research, especially doctoral students or any novice researchers, the aim is to train, to gain some expertise in what they're doing. So the aim is not to produce very good pieces of research, but just to learn. Well, I always share this, okay? I shared it last time, if you remember, Nevine, with Professor Qirat, but I always share it because it's a very, very good way of explaining to people what research is generally about. This sums it all. Like, you have this onion by Saunders et al., and it shows that research has a number of layers. Like, that's why he called it the onion, to give us the layers of research. We have philosophies. So research starts with a philosophy, of course. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So approaches, we have strategies, we have choices, we have time horizons, and there are techniques and procedures that we need to follow, and then data collection and data analysis. But this is just, as I said today, it's just a, let's say, something that I added to my presentation to give all students maybe who were not in the last, who did not attend the session at Muhammad V University, that they can keep and learn from. Now, what I'm interested in today is this. I kind of, got this from a reference, but I kind of played with it. Normally we have here down, we have epistemology, and then we have theoretical perspective, methodology, and methods. And there are people who have rejected it, mainly John Dewey, who rejected the dichotomy of epistemology and metaphysics. Well, I put other things that are very, very important. At the bottom, you have ontology, you have research paradigm, you have theoretical perspective, you have methodology, and you have methods. Why these are important? They guide the research, and if you, we'll see together later that research that has quality is research that takes into consideration these elements or these components, and especially the philosophical components that are here. So the first one, which is ontology, is about what is your view of reality. The issue of reality is central to doing research. It is central. So when we talk to students about doing research, I think we should clarify this to them, and we should bring it down to earth. should bring it down to earth. And we are going to try to do this, hopefully, because most of times when you talk about ontology, especially when people hear the word ontology, they get scared. So ontology is about our view of reality. How do we view reality? Well, simply, even in the ordinary world, even without embarking on research, we have different perceptions of reality. So we view reality differently. Then we have research paradigm. Of course, what is knowledge is about epistemology. So, but research paradigm, we're going to explain what research paradigm is, and theoretical perspectives, different theories and how they drive research. So it's about how will you build, create, establish, identify knowledge. That's what theoretical perspective is about. Okay? So how will you build, create, establish, identify knowledge? And that shows that theory is very, very important for research, and that's what we're going to see. So theories help, or a theoretical perspective help building, creating, establishing, identifying knowledge. Then we have methodology. So what will guide how you go about it? So we're going to see what methodology about. There is a difference between methodology and methods. Methods is about techniques, what will be used together and analyze the data. And of course, as you can see here, research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought. And I like this by Georgi Albert. Now, what about research philosophy? As we said, do you still get me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. I feel like I got cut. Is everything? There are three components, main components when we talk about research philosophy, and they are ontology, epistemology, and axiology. I'll focus on this one. Okay. So ontology is very, very important, as I said. Axiology is about ethics. We have already seen what epistemology is. It's about a theory of knowledge, what knowledge is about, how to build knowledge, and what knowledge is and how to build knowledge. But ontology is about reality. And why this is important, research philosophy is very, very important, because it is said in the review of the literature that research that has quality is research that comes from researchers who are aware of the philosophical underpinnings of research. No matter how that might sound difficult at the beginning for novice researchers hearing things like these, but they are very important. As I said, we need to bring that down to earth and explain it to them as clearly as possible by providing examples so that they can see what this research philosophy is and how it can guide them towards providing a research of quality. Now, if we embark on reality, I have brought a number of people here. I don't know if you can recognize all of them, of course, but well, let's see. Here you have Sigmund Freud. Here's Sigmund Freud. Here, Pavlov. Here you have Newton, Isaac Newton, and here you have Eccles, who is famous in neuroscience, and here you have Albert Einstein. And why I brought these people together, of course, to just tell all of you and to reflect on something, on how these people see reality. That's the point. So that's what I think we should do when we talk about reality, or the philosophy of the ontology components of philosophy, research philosophy, is to talk about how different researchers have depicted reality and have tried to investigate reality. Of course, when you think of Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton, who worked on the same thing, who worked on physics and tried to explain a number of natural phenomena, physical phenomena, they didn't follow the same paradigm. There has been what we call a paradigm shift from moving from Isaac Newton to Albert Einstein. So this paradigm shift, of course, is explained through the components, or the let's say the elements that Albert Einstein brought to the observations that he have carried out in terms of how he studied relativity and how he studied the physical world. The same thing for Pavlov here. Pavlov, of course, is very well known for his behaviorist theory. Yes, so he was the one who initiated this through his research on his dog, and we know about the story of Pavlov. But it just tells us that when people study human behavior here, for example, when we think of Pavlov, when we think of Skinner, we think of other researchers that came later, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. So these people studied human behavior from different perspectives. So they didn't view human behavior from the same view or the same perspective, and they use different theories. And these different theories are all of them are kind of, they have ground in the study of human behavior, but they differ in terms of how they see this human behavior. They have seen human behavior from different angles. And that's what researchers today should know, that if you want to study human behavior, you're going to study it from different behavior. We have here Freud, who studied the psychology of human being, okay, of course human behavior, but through the psychology of human being, who focused on a different perspective, a totally different perspective. So he saw reality from a different perspective. So all this to tell you that the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity of life, of the marvelous structure of reality, as one scholar said. So reality is very important, but it has different structures, and and people can see it from different perspectives. Now, of course, we can tell our researchers or novice researchers that reality can be divided into different types of reality, with invisible reality, visible reality. Well, we have objective reality that can be visible, both visible and invisible. And when we talk about objective reality that is visible, we talk about the animal life. Okay, we can see, we can study animals through observation, and that's visible. But we have invisible reality. That's why we have created microscopes in order to try to depict the things that we cannot see by our eyes. So that's the objective part of reality. So research in biology, for example, focuses on an invisible reality. We have unconscious reality and conscious reality, which are part of the subjective reality. And we can talk about neuroscience research. It's not objective, it's subjective, because the researchers try to explain a number of natural phenomena and behavior and other things through studying neuroscience, through studying the brain. But not everything is clear, and not everything is visible, and not everything is conscious. There are elements that are unconscious in the human mind and the human brain, and these studies can be subjective. They study a subjective reality. As I said, I'm going to give flashes. If I keep talking about every element, I'm not going to finish today. So I'll move on to the idea of paradigms. So what is a paradigm? Okay, so the idea of paradigm has been defined by Cohen in 1962, and he is the one who is very much cited when it comes to paradigms. Of course, you have paradigms, not perspectives. Research is not about perspectives, it's about paradigms. So you have to study the idea of a paradigm. What is a paradigm? What is a paradigm shift? How different paradigms do we have in research in order to guide our research and structure it better? Of course, a paradigm is a philosophy or a way of thinking, okay, or a philosophical way of thinking, as Cohen said, or it's a worldview. And it's a set of common beliefs and agreements shared between scientists about how problems should be understood and addressed. I may refer you to the work of evolution theory by Darwin. And evolution theory, when Darwin came up with his evolution theory, this evolution theory guided a number of researchers in different fields. So that evolution theory became the paradigm during Darwin's time, and after and later. So people started, like, if we think, for example, about the developmental stages of the stages of development of children by Piaget or others, they are based on the evolution theory. They have been affected by the evolution theory. So that's because that was the dominating paradigm at that time. So most studies in different fields started focusing on evolution, started focusing on how, for example, human beings evolve in terms of behavior and develop and how this evolution affects their behavior and other things, even in biology. So how humans' biology evolves or develops. So because at that time, the paradigm that was dominating was evolution theories. Where we can also explain a paradigm by a constellation of concepts, values, perceptions, and practices shared by a community, which forms a particular vision of reality that is the basis of the way a community organizes itself. Why I'm bringing the idea of paradigm here? And as I said, these are flashes, and then your researchers need to go and read. There are plenty of articles that I can share with you later. If you get in touch with me, I can share with you many articles that explain what a paradigm is and how paradigms can be used in different fields of research, especially in translation or applied linguistics. Although I'm not, I haven't studied translation, but I just want to make things pertinent today, because I know that there are people here who work in translation, so maybe we can bring some examples from translation studies and applied linguistics so that we can make things clearer. But as I said, you can get in touch with me and I can send you articles that explain what a paradigm is and how it affects research. So when we look at this, we have it's a perception and practice shared by a community. Well, when we refer to a community here, we refer to a community of researchers or theoreticians, people who pose theories, and they have reached, let's say, every time human beings reach a different reality. That's how we can term it. So when researchers, like those major theoreticians and scholars, when they reach a different reality, this reality becomes the paradigm that is predominant. Cohen calls this a revolution paradigm, paradigm revolution. That is to say, there is a new paradigm that is created, and the old paradigm, there are followers who keep pushing the old paradigm, but it's always the new paradigm that wins, because it comes up with more perspective and more explanations about the reality. So just remember that paradigm is also related to how we see reality. So that's why it is very important. Now, the major paradigms that we have in research and that researchers should take into consideration are these. So we have the positivists, and positivism is about, we'll explain that later. We have interpretivism, we have pragmatism, and we have post-positivism, or what we call critical realism. And interpretivism can also be called constructivism. Maybe I just forgot to put it down for those of you who want to have a visual aids. But we can also call interpretivism constructivism. We know that pragmatism was created by John Dewey in USA as a revolution against positivism and against the dichotomy created by epistemology. And as I said, I can always share you can note down any, when I make reference, I give a reference, you can note it down, and if you want me to share it with you, I can share it with you later. So as I said, pragmatism was created in USA by John Dewey, and because John Dewey worked so hard on creating a new paradigm, okay? And it was called pragmatism, and we're going to take a look at what it means later. So now, reality and research methods. Of course, when we talk about reality, because don't forget that the title of today is Understanding Research Methods through the Use of Theory. So when we talk about paradigms, we talk about creating new theories that explain the reality. Well, when we say reality, it depends on which field you are talking about, of course. So when we talked about Newton, or we talked about Albert Einstein, we're talking about physical reality. So that physical, how those two researchers viewed the physical world. Yeah, they viewed it in different ways, so they had different realities. So when we say reality and research methods, it means the theories that explain reality, or the theories that try to account for reality in a given way, which differs from one theory to another, of course, and how these theories can feed research methods or can guide or structure research methods. So if we look at positivists, there are a lot of students. Sometimes when I read my students, I teach students of business and management. When I read their research thesis, sometimes most of them write, this research is positivist. And I ask the question, how do you know? How do you know that it is positivist? And most of them don't have a clue, simply because, as I said, they have not reflected upon these elements the way they should reflect upon these elements. And it's the case everywhere. It's not just our students. It's the case almost everywhere. I mean, if students haven't been given enough time to reflect upon these paradigms, they get them wrong, because they like, as I always say, when people get attracted to something, they like it and they stick to it. So you like the word positivism because you heard it from a professor, and the explanation is so tough, by the way, to explain what positivism is about. Is about for a student who has started learning research. It's not easy at all. That's why I said we need to bring this down to earth. So positivists, we can talk about natural sciences. It's the origin of sciences, which is the science method. So scientific method, what we call the scientific method, used positivism because they see a single reality. So when we talk about the physical reality as viewed by Newton or as viewed by Albert Einstein. So Newton saw a single reality, one single reality, and explained that reality. And that paradigm of Newton, it's dominated for a long period of time, because that's what positivism is about. So there is a single reality that can be measured quantitatively and objectively. Remember, I didn't put objectively there, but it is a very, very important word. Objectively, why? Because the researcher isolates himself from that reality, and he observes that reality and he tries to explain it. So he doesn't intervene. I mean, there is no intervention from the researcher. Yes? Okay. And we have constructivism. In constructivism, so it says that no single reality or truth. Remember that constructivism is about interpretivism. No single reality or truth. There is no single reality or truth. So there are multiple truths. The researchers see multiple truths. And that's what we have in social sciences. That's why we can say that in social sciences, many paradigms live together, survive. I mean, they cohabitate. Many paradigms in social sciences cohabitate. But one paradigm, we cannot have many paradigms in hard sciences. It's not possible, because they are hard sciences. So that's why we have the positivist. The positivist perspective should be limited to hard sciences. I don't think that students doing research in management, or students doing research in human sciences, social sciences, sorry, students doing research, for example, in applied linguistics, or students doing research in translation, can talk about positivism. Okay? So constructivism or interpretivism, no single reality, there are multiple realities. It's more likely to use qualitative methods to get those multiple realities. But we have pragmatism, and pragmatism did what? So it came up with a new perspective of reality. So reality is constantly renegotiated. Why renegotiated? Because of the belief of John Dewey that human beings adapt to their environments. They create new ways to adapt to their environment. So every time human beings create new ways to adapt to the environment. So the environment is not imposed on them, but we try to readapt and readjust. The reality is constantly renegotiated, debated, interpreted, and the best method is the one that solves the problem. There is no best method here. So if you're going to use if you think that the qualitative method solves your problem, you're going to use the qualitative method. If it depends on how you justify it. By the way, the answer to the question, which is the best method, there is no answer. There is no best method. It depends on your perspective of the truth. It depends on your perspective, what you want to study and how you see it. So it depends on how you're going to justify it as a researcher. Then we have post-positivism, which is also called critical realism. So reality as experienced by the majority. So here a use of mixed methods is possible, because we want to try to capture this reality that is experienced by the majority. Now, what is theory? Because the third element, if you still remember, after paradigm is theories or theoretical perspective. A theory is a set of interrelated constructs, concepts, definitions, and propositions that present a systematic view of phenomena by specifying relations among variables with the purpose of explaining and predicting phenomena. If I am going fast, can you just say it, because I feel like I'm going so fast. Is that okay? Is everything okay? Yes? Okay. So as I said, a definition of a theory is very, very important. So it's a set of interrelated constructs. The idea of constructs is very important for researchers, because a researcher must have constructs. That means concepts. Your concept may be motivation if you're studying motivation. Motivation as a concept. It might be, for example, second language acquisition. Okay? So second language acquisition as a concept. So the constructs that you are going to study, what are these constructs? The text in translation studies, the text or the word. I'm not going to say things that may cause me problems today, because there are experts in translation here and translation studies, but it's okay. So constructs in research are very important. So what are the constructs that you're going to study? What are the concepts that are interrelated? So the relationship between these constructs are explained by theory. Theory explains the relationship between your constructs, how your constructs relate. Which one is the dependent variable, which one is the independent variable. You can find that in theories. Theories do that. And if you followed my seminar, as I said, the last seminar in Morocco and Mohammed V University, I explained that. So you can go back. I know that Professor Nevine has maybe can have access to the video. she can share it with all of you, because it talks deeply about how theory helps researchers build the variables and build the hypotheses and build research questions. So theories are verbal representations of reality. That's why it's very important to use theories in research. They are verbal representations of reality. Remember, we are not talking about one reality here, unless you are using a positivist approach and you are studying hard sciences, but you are not talking about one reality. So theories are verbal representations of reality. That's why people who do research in social sciences, applied linguistics is one of them, they can use many theories to explain the same thing, and it's okay. I mean, that's why we said that different paradigms cohabitate. Now, what is the role of theory? This is again just something I shared from the last seminar. It provides a framework for research. It helps generate questions and hypotheses. If you want to get the hypotheses and the questions, you get them from the theory if you're using what we call grand theory research, not grounded theory research. And I refer you to the seminar that I gave last. The difference between grounded theory and grand theory is very important. If you're following grand theory research, you're going to generate hypotheses and research questions from the theory that you're using. So it helps define variables and determine relationships between variables, and it guides data interpretation. So that's what theory can help you do. Almost everything, I mean, it's the backbone of research. So that's why it's important for researchers, novice researchers, to understand what theories are and to use theories and to know what theories to use and what theories not to use. It depends on them. It depends on how appropriate the theories are to their research. Now, we can use an example very quickly. This is a very, very famous theory from applied linguistics, and those of you who work in the field of applied linguistics know this theory very well. So the theory of Krashen Theory of SLA, which says that language acquisition does not require extensive use of conscious grammatical rules and does not require tedious drill, and acquisition requires meaningful interaction in the target language, natural communication in which speakers are concerned, not with the form of their utterances, but with the messages they are conveying and understanding. Of course, if we take this theory into consideration and we want to do research using this theory, we can do research in many elements related to applied linguistics. For example, when we talk about errors, correcting students, when we talk about teachers giving feedback, when a student make an error and you correct them. Well, according to Krashen, students should not be corrected, because correction is not going to help students learn naturally. So if we may build experiments here based on this theory, because it says that language acquisition does not require extensive use of conscious grammatical rules, but it requires what? It requires natural communication. And it requires what? It requires exposure to what? To comprehensive inputs. Yes, those of you who are familiar with this know what comprehensive inputs is. So exposure to comprehensive inputs helps learners learn better, pick up the language faster. We can create experimental studies using the experimental method, yes, and compare, for example, classes that use grammatical rules, focus on grammatical rules, and classes that provide exposure to natural communication, and see to what extent the groups who are in these different classes learn better, or who learns better than the other, using this theory. I mean, what I want to say is that this theory can, of course, guide research in the field of applied linguistics of language learning. Well, when it comes to research methodology, which is if you remember, the fifth element in the tree that I provided at the beginning, yes, research methodology is about what? So research methodology is about the approaches. It's your research approach. Okay, so how do you approach the research the topic you're studying? In what way you are approaching it? Generally speaking, there are two general approaches, two major approaches, which are the inductive and the deductive approach, or the qualitative and the quantitative approach. And as I said, we can refer to grand theory and grounded theory. So deductive quantitative approaches using different methods that we're going to talk about later. They focus on hypothesis testing, and they focus on generalizability. The focus is on generalizability. That is to say, having a sample that is representative of the population in order to generate results that are generalizable to the population. And it uses grand theory, as I said, so because it's theory testing. So if I'm using an experimental study using Krashen, so it's grounded in grand theory, not in grounded theory. The opposite is grounded theory, where we have inductive qualitative studies So they are inductive, they are qualitative, mainly qualitative. Why? Because they seek understanding and they focus on experience. So the focus is on human experience, on human beings' experience. So it's not, the focus is not on generalizability. So that's why the focus is not on statistics, but the focus is on the experience, on explaining phenomena through individuals' perspectives. And that can use grounded theory. That is to say, you can start with a question, a research question. Okay, you can kind of have, for example, interviews. I'm already getting into methods, and then generate a number of answers that will later maybe help researchers develop a theory or build a theory. Now, when it comes to research methods, which is the last element of in the tree, we may call it the last branch in the tree. We have kind of, you know, as I've been going on, we've kind of seen the relationship between theory and research from different perspectives. I mean, from the perspective of paradigms, research paradigms, because they are grounded in theories that guide the research. And then when it comes to a single research study, that uses a theory that to structure or to kind of develop a number of hypotheses in research questions. So these are kind of two elements. One is major, how theories from a major perspective guide research, and from a, let's say, a minor perspective, they guide one study, one investigation in one field. So research methods can be also divided into two major parts: the qualitative methods and the quantitative methods. And in qualitative methods, we have case studies. A case study is a qualitative method because it exists, or representation, or generalizability. So, but we focus on a specific issue. Case studies focus on a specific issue. I want to study, for example, how one novel was translated. So that's a case study. I hope I'm not saying, as they say in French, je ne dis pas des bêtises.
No,
But this is just an example. I'm just
thank you.
Want to be a little bit funny. But case studies, I can study one case or two cases, multiple cases. It depends. Sometimes you may study one case, you may study multiple cases. But a case study is a qualitative method. Now, I know that you can Google quantitative methods and qualitative methods, and you can have all these examples. The point is not to provide you with these qualitative methods or quantitative methods. No, the objective is for us as researchers to reflect upon a question. Why would I use a qualitative method, or why would I use a quantitative method? Now, a lot of researchers, especially our doctoral students and novice researchers, do not ask this question. They just say, I want to use a qualitative method. I want to use a mixed method. But the question is why? Why? And that takes me back to what I talked about when I talked about theory, okay, from the major perspective, guiding research methods. So why would I use case studies? Why would I use narrative reviews? Why would I use corpora analysis in translation studies? Yes. Why would I use ethnography? Why would I use discourse analysis, again, in translation studies? Why would I use phenomenology? Why would I use historical analysis? Now, the answer that kind of can be given by everyone is you are going to use these methods because you are using either an interpretative or a constructivist paradigm, or maybe a pragmatist paradigm, but you are not using a positivist paradigm. Okay? So if you are using an interpretivist paradigm, you want to have access to the experience of human beings and the experience of people you are studying, you are going to use a qualitative methods. Why? Because these are the methods that will give you access to these experiences. If you want to use quantitative methods, maybe you are going to use a positivist paradigm, but it depends. I mean, you have to really, it's up to you to find the answer. So my presentation today, I want to focus on this research methods. And I want to ask everyone who is doing research, including myself, to reflect upon the question, why would I use a quantitative method? And why would I use a qualitative method? Students should really understand this. The question why is very, very important. I am not going to use mixed methods because everybody is using mixed methods, because everyone today is using mixed methods. Whenever I go, I am using a mixed methods approach. But the question is why? Why would you use a mixed methods approach? Everybody wants to have statistics. Everybody is using surveys. Why are you using surveys? Because everybody uses a questionnaire. But no, that's not research. That's not what research is about. Unfortunately, okay, this is my observation. I haven't carried the research. I'm really sorry, but I just want to share my impression on this. My impression is that most of our researchers, they jump on the bandwagon without reflection. They just go with the, as they say, they just go with the flow. This is the expression. They go with the flow because they hear everybody talking about using surveys. They hear everybody talking about quantitative studies, mixed methods. No, you have to ask yourself a question. So go back and study the evolution of this. That's what will come later. The evolution of the field you are studying. This is really important for researchers. A lot of researchers have no idea how the field they are studying has evolved. Like in applied linguistics, we have a number of articles on how applied linguistics has evolved and the different theories, from the linguistic paradigm to the extended linguistic paradigm to the constructivist paradigm, and so on and so forth. A lot of our novice researchers do not know this, do not have an idea about this, and they do research just in the vacuum without having an idea about the evolution of the field they're studying. An evolution or knowledge about the evolution of the field you're studying is very important for researchers, not just for experts in the domain, but for researchers, because it guides your research paradigm and it provides you with a very clear framework of what to do and why to do it, what you're going to do and why you are going to do it. Just a simple example, when we talk about, for example, behaviorism, I think we're going to move to this later, but let's say which method is the best. So this is the answer I provided earlier by Arbner and Jerk. They said you can never empirically or logically determine the best approach. This can only be done reflectively, and you underline this word, by considering a situation to be studied and your own opinion of life. Of course, your own opinion of life is not going to be isolated from the theories you have studied and the evolution of the science you are studying and so on and so forth. It's not going to be just an opinion, because as I always say, researchers should not say, I like this, I want to use it because I like it. No, remember, that's what the first word we saw in defining research is, it is systematic. Nevine, how much time do I still have?
You have all your time.
Thank you so much.
Everyone is telling me that you are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm not reading any messages. I don't want to get distracted. So I hope that everybody understands what I say. But
yeah.
As I said, we can always share things with you, and you can read on your own. And that's the point. The point is to
the last session, please. Yani, let us have you.
Well, it's not going to be the last unless you say it's going to be the last.
No,
it depends on you.
Thank you.
So what I'm saying is that we have to tell that I'm going to share with you the articles that I have if you want them, because we want to develop this in our students in the Arab world and everywhere, of course, but in the Arab world we want to develop autonomous learners. Look, the articles I'm going to share with you are articles I got from the internet. I didn't travel to the moon to bring them. I mean, they are there, but we need to develop this autonomy in us and reflect on what we are studying and see how we are studying it and why we are studying it. Ask questions, always ask questions, because that's how Socrates taught us. I mean, taught a number of philosophers in the ancient world. So the only thing we can do when asked about the best method, the only thing we can do is to try to make explicit the special characteristics on which the various approaches are based. Please underline this. Please underline it, because it's very important. When you are in a viva, okay, you're doing your viva, for example, for your doctoral studies or your master thesis, there is that doctor who will tell you, why did you choose this? You have to find the answer. You have to find justifications. Every choice you make in research should be justified. Every choice. It should not be justified by I like this or I don't like this. You only like things on Facebook, but not when you're doing research. I mean, when you're doing research, you should have justifications that are scientific, that are systematic, that are grounded in theory. And when we say theory, not just one single theory, the research theory, the scientific method, or maybe not the scientific method, but if you're doing research in social sciences, you have to justify your choices based on what social sciences researchers or the review of the literature says about the choices you're making. So you're not going to make choices at random. Impossible. So as I said, remember this, the only thing we can do is to try to make explicit the special characteristics. So why make explicit? Because a lot of times researchers make choices unconsciously. They choose something, but they are unconscious. Why? They don't know why they chose it, or they don't even know if they have chosen it or not. So make explicit the special characteristics on which the various approaches are based. So if I chose a case study, I should first study what a case study is, have a clear idea what case studies are, and why they are used, and when they are used, and which paradigm do they refer to, and whether that paradigm suits my objectives or not, whether it suits the topic that I'm studying or not, and so on and so forth. All these questions should be raised before you submit, before you even start embarking on your research, and before you submit your thesis, not after. Of course, most of these answers come later once researchers become experts, but I think that we should revert the perspective, reverse the perspective through teaching research. When we teach research methodology, that's why I said we should bring things down to earth to our students and try to explain things to them really down to earth. So now, blending theory and practice, and this is the last part, not the last slide, but the last part, if you allow me, Nevine. Yes. So blending theory and practice, what I try to do, I am not, as I said, an expert in, I'm not even an expert. I don't know much about translation studies, but I try to do my best to kind of fit the what I'm saying to the objective of this e-club in the Faculty of Translation and Applied Linguistics. So translation studies, understanding the different paradigms. Well, someone who is doing research in translation or doing translation studies cannot not know that there has been an evolution in what we call translation studies, moving from linguistics and literary studies, because at the beginning, of course, translation studies were impacted by linguistics and literary studies. So then came the sociocultural theories that affected translation studies, and then we have the colonial era, and then we have the post-colonial era, or what we call post-colonial theory, and later came the what we call the social psychological theory. And why I put these, because we talk about paradigms, these are different paradigms. They provide us with different views of reality, of the translated text, or what is called the target, the source text, what is called in translation studies the ST. Yes, the ST and the no, it's not the ST, it's the TT, the target text. Yes, so you correct me if I am wrong, but as I said, when you are studying, doing research in translation studies, if you don't know how translation studies have evolved and how the paradigms have shifted, and what is the dominant paradigm today, or why there is maybe a return to one, because that can happen in science. We can move back to one old paradigm and start doing research based on that paradigm. It may happen. I mean, or why two paradigms exist at the same time. So you have to understand this through studying the evolution of the field you are studying. I'm not going to say much because I'm not the expert in the room, as I said, and you can refer to your professors. MashaAllah, you have amazing professors in translation studies who can tell you more about this. Okay, so just forgive me if I stumbled on something or made a mistake about what I'm saying. So the next thing is, I'm just going to try to explain this very, very quickly in the light of what I have been saying about research. So when it comes to translation studies that were viewed within linguistics literary criticism, okay, that was the first paradigm. So they follow the linguistic approach or a semantic approach. That's what we refer to as positivism when we talk about research. Why? Because you're studying the text, it's there, and there is no intervention from the researcher, and we're not dealing with the social environment or the psychological environment of the person who translated the text. So because we're studying the linguistic elements or the semantic approach or the pragmatic approach or functional approach, all these are within the translation studies viewed within linguistics and literary criticism. We have socioculturally oriented concepts of translation. Here the focus on social. So it's, look, there is interpretivism here or constructivism. We cannot use positivism when we're doing research from this perspective, from this paradigm. So the focus is on social, cultural, and communicative functions. So there are many elements that construct reality. That's why we call it constructivism. So focus on effect or human agency rather than internal structures. So there is a shift from language to human activity. Because there is a shift from language, which is there, to human activity, of course, we cannot separate. There are a number of researchers, when you read articles, they say that we cannot separate human activity from language. But, well, just superficially, the shift was from language to human activity, from studying linguistic elements, let's say, to human activity, and to the social factors, the cultural factors, and the communicative functions of translation. We have the post-colonial translation studies, which focus on concepts such as identity, power, ideology. And when we focus on these elements, okay, you focus on other issues that are also social, that are cultural, that are societal, and so on and so forth. So you move from positivism towards pragmatism, towards interpretivism. And you have social and psychological paradigms. So moving from text to mind. Here, the psychological paradigms focus on the mind. So focusing on the mind, we cannot use a positivist approach to study the mind. It's not possible, because if we're talking about the mind, so we're talking about an individual experience and an individual perception. When it comes to the second elements in your faculty, which is the applied linguistics or language learning paradigms, we have talked about how things have evolved from behaviorism to cognitivism to constructivism to neuroconstructivism. So these evolutions help researchers situate their research somewhere. So when we study motivation, for example, just an example, learners' motivation, researchers using theories should ask themselves the question whether this theory is based in behaviorism or based in cognitivism or based in constructivism or based in neuroconstructivism or something else. So you should always ask the question, which paradigm guides these theories that I'm using? And at the same time, when I'm trying to study motivation from, let's say, using Maslow's pyramid of needs, for example, okay, where am I going to put it? Within which paradigm? Of course, we have to have the humanistic theory of language learning or of behaviorism or human behavior, sorry. The humanistic approach to human behavior. So it's different from the behaviorist approach to human behavior or the constructivist approach to human behavior, or the cognitivist approach to it. So things like this should be understood by researchers. Otherwise, your research is not going to be not good. I don't like the word good, but it's not going to be effective first, and it's not going to have quality. Now, moving from theory to research, blending theory and practice, we can give an example of translation studies using critical discourse analysis, because in critical discourse analysis, see translation as a communicative process, norms, or critical discourse analysis to study a given text or a number of texts. I'm not going to use a positivist approach, but I'm going to use an interpretivist approach or pragmatist approach, because we're talking about social realities, and social realities, you know that they are not 100% objective. They cannot be objective. So they are subject to social structures, norms, and processes. So it's a number of processes because we have a human experience. Then we have, on the other side, we have applied linguistics, and we have the use of the social pragmatic theory of learning that says that there is need for flexible social cognitive skills that can facilitate, sorry, there is a mistake here, that facilitates the understanding of communicative intentions in a wide interactive situation. So if we want to study how children learn, for example, language or learn words, this theory tells us that children, they are actively engaged in that learning process. They're actively engaged. Their brain is actively engaged. So that's pragmatic. That's a pragmatic view of learning. And if I use this theory, I'm going to be using a pragmatic approach to my research, because we refer to how children adjust to different situations, different learning situations. They try to understand the intention of you, because we have looked at the understanding of communicative. They use cognitive skills. Children use cognitive skills or social cognitive skills to understand the communicative intentions of adults who are speaking to them, so as to learn new words. Not only adults, I mean everybody who is using language around them. So these are just two examples to tell you that sometimes the theories we use are pruned in a given approach or a given paradigm, and we should really ask ourselves questions. So which paradigm drives which theory, in order to understand what I'm doing, to have more perspective about what I'm doing as a researcher. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Professor Aziz. We are deeply, it was an informative presentation. It was very clear, and your presentation was enlightening and clear presentation, and especially useful because our students need this. We have with us Professor Shadia El-Sousi. She's always delivering sessions on research method. Let me welcome her. Please, Dr. Shadia El-Sousi, are you with us? And all our audience are appreciating everything. Yani, un grand merci. Yani, si on peut le dire, c'est un grand merci. And we are, I appreciate how you evaluate et évoluer with the thinking of research method, theory and analyzing everything. Dear Professor Shadia El-Sousi, are you with us now?
Yes, I am. Thank you for the mention. I enjoyed the lecture, and I only had one question, which I was hoping you would ask because I sent it to you in writing.
No, I would like to thank before Professor Aziz, and as you are the professor of research method in our institute, and you are a dear colleague, so I'm delighted that you asked your question. Please do.
Okay, I'll try and ask the question from the perspective of case studies. You mentioned that case studies can be used to do research on a novel, for example. When my experience with case studies, or what the references say about case studies, is that it's a longitudinal ethnographic study. So maybe you can develop this point, because some of our students mention the idea of case studies as a type of research, and I always tell them, no, be careful, it's a longitudinal ethnographic study. So you have a new perspective that I would like to hear more about. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shadia El-Sousi.
Thank you, Nevine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Thank you for your intervention. Well, I am going to say something about this because when it comes to translation studies, and I explained it, I really don't have much ideas about how methods are used in translation studies, but what I can tell you, I can refer you. I don't know if you see the onion. Yes.
Yes, of course.
So we'll go back to the onion. I will tell you something about what you said. There are two layers when it comes to what you said. So we have this layer, okay, where we have strategies, okay? And we have
Yes.
this layer here. So this layer here is about time horizons, okay? So it refers to whether you are going to carry out a cross-sectional study, what we call you're going to carry out a study in a very specific limited period of time, yes? Or you're going to study, you carry out a longitudinal study, fine? Now, when it comes to case studies, they can use both. They can use both, actually. That's what I understand from, especially when you talk about ethnography, because ethnography is a special method, yes? So ethnography using case studies can be longitudinal, yes. But case studies cannot be only longitudinal. This is the answer to your question. We can use case studies in cross-sectional research. I'll give you an example. If I want to study, for example, let's say how in business and management, I'm going to use how business and management, the field of business and management. If I want to use how human resources are developed, and I want to study, for example, the impact of raised pay, okay, on workers' motivation. One researcher can use one company or one firm as a case study. So they can use one firm as a case study, but they are going to carry out cross-sectional research, not longitudinal research. If you are using ethnography, because ethnography cannot be studied cross-sectionally, I guess. So that's why if you are using case study and you're studying ethnography from the ethnographic perspective, you need to carry out longitudinal studies.
Thank you very much. I am not a translation specialist. I am applied linguistics, and maybe my studies of sociolinguistics have made it more graphic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, doctor. You're welcome.
Thank you, Professor Shadia. Thank you, Professor Aziz. Let me also, there is two participants, they raised their hands. So please, this is, I will tell you who. Yes, I have Umema Ikayel. Please ask your question, please. She's a translator and PhD student in the Institute of Applied Linguistics. Please introduce yourself, Umema.
Thank you, Dr. Nevine. And good evening, first of all. I am Umema Khayel, a translator in German information technology and a PhD student at the Institute of Applied Linguistics and Translation. And I'd like to thank you very much for this brilliant session. I'd like to ask Dr. Abdelaziz, there was a slide, the title of which is which method is best, and there was a sentence which reads the only thing we can do is to try to make explicit the special characteristics on which the various approaches are based. I'm sorry, I don't quite catch the meaning of this sentence, so could you please elaborate on this sentence so I can understand which method is best?
Thank you, Umema.
You're welcome.
Hi, Umema.
Hi, Dr. Abdelaziz.
I just can't hear you very well. I can't hear you very well even now. I can't hear you very well.
Umema, repeat your question.
Okay.
Can you please tell me which slide you're talking about? Which one?
Which method is best?
Yes. Which method is best? Okay.
It was
actually, this is a very difficult question, Dr. Abdelaziz. I'd like to know the answer.
So what is the question? What is the question?
The question is related to the second, the final sentence, which reads, the only thing we can do till the end on which the various approaches are based. I can't quite catch the meaning of this sentence.
Okay, you are a researcher. Okay, you are a researcher.
Yes.
And when you make choices, you are the one who makes choices. Yes. I mean, when you make choices about methods or you make choices about the strategies you are going to use to collect data, you are the one who does that. I mean, maybe your supervisor can give you counsel, can provide you with advice, but at the end, you are going to be the one who decides, yes? Now, when you decide about a method, you're going to decide about using a case study and the longitudinal research, let's say. You need to make explicit, that is to say, you need to bring to the surface. They should not just stay in your unconscious mind. So you need to bring to the surface the characteristics, the features, the underpinnings, and the reasons, let's say, on which the various approaches are based. So if you're using, because there are every approach is based on a special characteristic. Every approach. If you're using the qualitative approach, it's based on special characteristics. You're going to say, for example, I'm using a qualitative study because the topic I'm studying, I need to have access to human experience, and I need to study how human beings, how people feel, their feelings about this issue, and so on and so forth. And I want to bring to the surface their feelings. So this I'm trying to justify and make explicit the special characteristics of the qualitative approach. So every approach you're going to use has some special characteristics. That's why I said you're not going to say, you're not going to say just, I want to use the qualitative approach because everybody is using the qualitative approach. Or I'm going to use the quantitative approach because there are statistics and I'm going to give percentages and I'm going to use inferential statistics in SPSS and so on and so forth. No, you need to justify everything you make and everything you do, every step you take, based on the characteristics of each approach. So each approach has its, that's why we call it systematic. Each approach is systematic. Each approach fits, let's say, each approach fits given objectives. Your approach, the approach you're using should fit your objectives, your research objectives. If they don't fit together, there is a problem. If you don't even know that whether they fit or not, that's a more serious problem.
Okay, thank you very much for your elaboration.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Professor Aziz. Thank you, Umama. There is another question from Ahmed Selim. Please, Ahmed.
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, hello everybody. Could you hear me?
Present, please,
yes,
yourself,
sure.
Ahmed.
I am Ahmed Selim. I am a student of English literature at Alexandria University. Actually, I have two questions. The first of which is, there was a slide titled as paradigms, not perspectives. So I think that paradigms are perspectives, okay? And within this slide, this slide was about defining paradigms and saying that it is the set of common beliefs and agreements, okay? And you gave an example of Darwin's evolution theory, and this theory went against the norms. So how come that this paradigm is the set of common beliefs and agreements, and Darwin's theory went against the norms and the beliefs at that time? This is the first question, and I hope that you have understood what I mean, or something like this. So please tell me what is the real meaning, or what paradigms mean, okay?
Okay, thank you, Selim. Thank you. This is a very, very important question. And your question about paradigm, not perspective, is a very good one. I'm sure that you are not the only one who thought about this. But why I wrote paradigm, not perspectives? Of course, a paradigm is a perspective, because we said that it's a world paradigm, not perspectives. I mean that as a researcher, you as an individual researcher, you are not going to use your own perspective, but you are going to use a paradigm or paradigms, but you are not going to use your own perspective of things. When you say, I guess that's how I see this reality, and that's what I should do. Not just based on what you see. it's not what you look at, it's what you see. This is your perspective. But then your research choices, I'm sorry, some people need to turn their mics off because
Okay.
there are echoes.
Yes. Okay. I will do it now. Sorry.
It's okay.
Done.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I was saying that it's not your own, it's not the perspective, especially of the novice researcher, it's the paradigm. So that's I think that answers your first question. The second, you're right about Darwin. He went against the norm. So the question is, when we say that the paradigm is the set of common beliefs and agreements shared between scientists about how problems should be understood and addressed, you should know that when Cohen, for example, talked about how paradigms are created, the first, I guess the second element of creating paradigms, what do revolutions do? Revolutions turn against the norm. And that's how they start. That's how paradigms start. So a paradigm begins by creating a revolution. And if it doesn't turn against the norms, it's not a revolution anymore. So once it creates that revolution, it turns against the norm. There is friction. There is always friction. That's what Cohen explains. There is friction between the old paradigm and the new paradigm. And the followers of the old paradigm always try to push the new paradigm away in order to kind of give more power to their own paradigm. But that paradigm, the old paradigm, loses battle and loses ground because the new paradigm provides a better understanding of the reality, or better, I'm not saying that one theory, one given theory, whether it's Darwin's or, but we're talking about research here. So your question about Darwin going against the norm, yes, that's true, because Darwin created a revolution. That's how knowledge is created. That's how research moves forward. And then after that revolution, what happens? Things become normal, and the evolution theory becomes the norm. And the researchers, many researchers, if you do research on how, for example, evolution theory has affected research in the 50s, 1950s, 1960s, you're going to find quite a lot of articles on this, because evolution has become the norm at that time. I guess that answers your question, Selim, and thank you for your introduction.
Thank you so much for your answer, and thank you, Dr. Nevine, for this lecture, and thank you all.
You're welcome. No, I can't hear anything. Dr. Nevine?
Thank you, Professor Aziz. And Dr. Nihad Mansour had a question. Please, Dr. Nihad Mansour.
Well, hi. Thank you very much, Professor Aziz. This is very informative and a very important, I would say, presentation. I have two comments and one question. My first comment is about the mixing up between qualitative and quantitative approaches in translation studies. And this is something that really all the students, they want to do both, and I don't know why. And sometimes when a candidate would propose to do quantitative by using, questionnaires or kind of surveys and statistics and things like that, I usually tell them why. So you're doing qualitative, why you want to mix with quantitative. So this is very, very important. And it's a point I think that we need to emphasize when supervising any of the translation studies researchers. Well, thank you for this point. The second point, my second comment is about the evolution of translation studies. Well, yes, it started linguistics and literary studies, and I think this kind of evolution ended up in psychological studies, as far as I remember. Well, to make it wider, I would say that it started linguistic and it ended up non-linguistic approaches, because now translation studies has kind of an arm in political sciences, in social sciences, and maybe in all kind of sciences, I would say. My question is about let me, yes, this one. The difference between constructivists and pragmatists, because both they really draw upon no single reality. And I think both draw upon that a reality is debated and interpreted. I can't really understand the difference between the two, because when I first saw this constructivists, I said, well, this translation studies, basically the research in translation studies is about no single reality, or more or less, it's a qualitative method, more or less. But then when you said something about the pragmatists, well, the reality is debated and interpreted. Well, again, translation studies would draw upon such method. So would you kindly differentiate more or less in a more, to me at least, in a more clear way, the difference between the two?
Okay, so just one thing first about what you said, Dr. Nihad.
Nihad, yes.
Dr. Nihad, yes, sorry. Dr. Nihad, what you said first about the importance of having an answer to the question why you're using qualitative and quantitative methods, and then you refer to the evolution of the translation studies. It's not a comment, but it's maybe let's say, proposition for you, dear professors, who might be teaching research methodology, or might even just be responsible, have a responsibility at the level of master degrees or doctoral studies. I think that we should include, let's say, elements of the studies of the evolution of the sciences that the students are studying to the research methods or research methodology. I do this because this has been kind of a personal impression. I've always felt like students who are doing doctoral research need to know about how the field that they're studying has evolved, so that they can do research better, because that provides them with a wider view. So this is maybe a proposition to you. And I hope that one day I will attend some of your lectures on this.
Oh, most welcome. Thank you.
The differences, you know, there are nuances between interpretivism and pragmatism, and a lot of people ask this question that you have asked, a very, very important question. Now, the first thing to remember is that the two paradigms have things in common, have a lot of things in common, because they have the same, let's say, perspective about reality. Okay? They understand reality the same way. But the main difference is that the understanding for interpretivism, how interpretivists understand reality, it's seen as a value of its own. While in pragmatism, the focus is on negotiation. And the understanding in pragmatism, how the mind, for example, understands reality, there is negotiation. There is this active process of negotiating the elements of understanding. I don't know if this is clear or not, but that might be a little bit nuanced. So the change in terms of reality, how reality changes in Dewey believes that reality is not fixed. Okay, reality is not fixed. Reality changes, and it changes according to how human beings adjust to that reality. So there is this interaction between the human being, the individual, and that reality. And individuals negotiate meaning, if we can say that, because you're teaching applied linguistics, I guess, or translation maybe. So maybe I confuse two people. So if we're dealing with, for example, the language learning, the focus from a pragmatist point of view is when we talk about meaning, understanding, how language learners understand language, we are going to focus on negotiation. But But when we talk about interpretivism, interpretivism focuses on understanding as a human experience. That is to say, the human being interacts with the environment and they construct their own reality. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but as I said, the differences are so nuanced between the two approaches.
Apparently, because maybe I got confused because I was thinking of translation studies only, but if you widen it up to other sciences, well, what you've said is quite clear. I mean, thank you very much. Thank you again for this very illuminating presentation. Thank you, Dr. Nevine.
Thank you, Dr. Nihat. We are really honored that you are with us. Thank you, Professor Aziz.
Thank you.
And I don't know if anyone have other questions. Please let us know. Yes, please, Dr. Abdallah. I welcome my colleague, Dr. Abdallah Atif. Please ask Professor Aziz.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Abdelaziz Zohri. I really enjoyed your session. Very informative, very useful for me. And all our MA and PhD candidate researchers. It's not a question, by the way, but it's point of view, my point of view about the problem for our researchers, not in our country, but in everywhere, by the way, about the, my point is here that some students or some researchers having a problem about which approach they will select. The problem is not difficult, or is not can be solved easily. You have research objectives, and you have questions, research questions, and you have approach. Your approach should be suitable, close related to your research questions or your research objectives. Another point, your data analysis. Your data analysis should be related to your approach. And there is some kind of close relationship between them. Otherwise, you will find a problem. So this is very, very important. Another point, our researchers must be objective, not subjective. I totally agree with you about the I don't like this approach, or I like it. It's not about you like or not. This is, you have to be objective researcher, and you have to specify your objectives, and you have to select your approach closely related to your research objectives, beside your data analysis, because you need it to apply. That's it. Thanks so much, Professor Zohri. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, sir. It's my pleasure. It's my honor.
Thank you, Professor Abdallah Atif, our colleague in the Institute of Applied Linguistics and Translation. Thank you, Professor Aziz, for the enlightening session. And I would like to thank you, everyone, for the wonderful and the great session. We are 2 hours together now. So I'm very happy to be with you. I would like to thank Professor Abir Rif'i, Professor Nihat Mansour, Dr. Shadia, Professor Dr. Layla Saeed. I would like to thank you, Professor Zainab from Saudi Arabia, from Morocco, from Iraq, from and Professor Azza Rizk, our great professor, French great professor in translation and linguistic study. Thank you, everyone. And I would, at the end, I would like also to thank I will thank the dean, our dean, Dr. Ghada Moussa. She is welcoming everyone in e-learning club, especially Professor Aziz today, and our rector, president of the Alexandria University, Vice Dean Sahar Sharif, Dr. Sahar Sharif, Dr. Hani Khamis, Dr. Hamdeno. Everyone is welcoming you, Professor Aziz, and I'm really, really
Thank
happy.
you so much. Thanks to everyone.
I will give you a word that we are going to collaborate for which with our students.
Sure.
Please let's collaborate and have a small dream big and have a small project.
Why not? Why not?
Yes, thank you. And excuse me for my pronunciation. As I said,
you're doing well. You're doing well.
French teacher. I'm French teacher, so I'm going to share again our links so everyone could be with us, inshallah, and see this YouTube. Welcome in Alexandria e-learning club. Welcome, Professor Aziz. Welcome everyone from Saudi Arabia, from Kuwait, from Iraq, from Morocco, and every professor and student from Morocco country and Algeria. Thank you for being with us. I'm really happy and delighted that Professor Mansour is with us, Professor Refi too, and Professor Zohri. Thank you, everyone. And
Nevine,
good night. Yes?
Nevine, can I just say one last word? I would like to thank everybody who has been here with me today. Thank all the professors and the doctors who attended this session. It's a really great pleasure for me to have you with me here, and all the doctoral students and the master students, everybody who has attended from different parts of the world. And I'm really.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. It's okay. It's okay.
Unmute all, and you unmute yourself, please, Professor Aziz.
So as I said, I would like also to thank you, Dr. Nevine, thank everybody in Alexandria University and your faculty or Institute of Applied Linguistics and Translation and the Alexandria e-learning club. It's been a pleasure sharing some of my readings and knowledge with you, and I'm ready to collaborate with you, maybe do more research together. Cross-cultural research is very important today, and I can even tell you that we may even have more sessions together. It's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Je vais clôturer en français aussi parce que nous avons des étudiants francophones. Alors, c'est pour donner aussi leur, comment dire, un futur brillant, d'avoir un petit projet en français aussi dans nos études et notre institut. So, between French and English, my heart is beating. Thank you, Professor Aziz, especially that I have learned French in lycée l'UT3 in Casablanca. I'm so happy.
Oh yeah, I live close to lycée l'UT. That's a good thing to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I was in lycée l'UT3 at Casablanca.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and goodbye. Bye-bye. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Open all of us, if we can, our screen so we can have a photo, a picture, please. If you could open the screen, everyone, so we could have a great photo together. Have a great, yes, please. And from Kuwait too. I'm going to take a picture of everyone.
Just 2 seconds.
Il a fini le travail. Oui, il a fini le travail. Oui, c'est pour ça que j'ai besoin de.
This is Yaqut saying hi from Morocco. Say hi.
Hi, Yaqut.